Hi guys, and welcome back to askNK. Today we are going to be lighting this particular asset we have here in Keyshot, and the core things which we're going to do, we're going to first of all talk about how you can light a gold material for a couple of subscribers that have issues like this, and next thing we're going to talk about how you can use the gradients to actually drive the opacity, and then finally we'll talk about how you can use textures to drive light. At the end of the day, we're going to end up coming out with a very nicely looking render. And one more thing which I'm going to explain is how you can convert a gold material to other kinds of metals by just shifting one particular slider. So if you're ready, let's get right into it. So let's get started. So right here in Keyshot, I have this very simple chair, and you can see that this chair by default is just a 3-piece chair, 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to zoom all the way out so you can get a good view. So what I've done, just to save up time, is I've gone ahead to actually place 2 extra boards, because this asset actually comes with 1 board. So I've gone ahead to place 2 extra boards, and these boards are going to be used as our light source. Another thing which I did was I made a duplicate copy of the floor, and I decided to use the floor as the background, and I added 1 extra board directly here. All right, so if you want to start shading, or if you want to start lighting this, how we can do this is going to be very simple. By default, Keyshot gives you a lot of materials that you can make use of. So something else I've done is I've gone ahead to save camera angles that I would like to look at. So you can save camera angles by just simply clicking the free camera, going around how you want this object to look like. When you're done shading, then click on a new camera. You can choose to name this camera if you want, and once you're done, you can just simply lock this camera. All right, so I'm back in the free camera, and this is just how you can make your cameras, right? So I'm back into the free camera, and I would start off by playing with the object first. So for this particular object, I'm going to type the word gold. So I'm just going to type gold, G-O-L-D. And with gold, I can drag in any kind of gold. So for this one, I would like to make the base gold. All right, and you can see that we have this base as gold. Then the next thing which I would like to do is I may want to give a different material to this. So let's go ahead and type the word plastic. And with the word plastic here, I would like to choose a very soft plastic. So let's see if we can find a soft plastic. Let's go all the way down. Let's actually find this from here. Soft. Yes, so I can pick a soft plastic, and I think a green one would be nice. So we have this soft plastic here. All right, I'm definitely going to change this later. It's just to actually show how you can add light to this. So by default, you can add things like spotlight to your object directly here in Keyshot. And so we can go ahead and add in a certain geometry. So let's say, for example, I go in here and I add a simple disk, and with this disk here, I can drag this disk all the way up, click OK. Let's actually scale this disk a little bit more so you can see the disk there. So I'm just going to scale this all the way to about 20. Let's go ahead and make this 40. So the disk is a little bit big. Use the move tool to move this disk around, so about that point. And I think I should scale this to, let's say, 80. 80 looks better. Now with this disk selected here, what we can do is I'm just going to reposition this. I can double click here and switch this to spotlight. And now you can see we have this spotlight here. I'm also going to right click and choose the move tool so I can actually move this. All right, so in case you're having issues with creating spotlight, there is a video in the channel that actually talks about this. So for this one now, if I go ahead and start tilting this, just to explain how this works with materials like metallic materials and gold-like materials, you would notice automatically that we have these lights hitting this object. You may not see what this light is doing, because right now we still have our power set to watts and it's set to 100. So I'm going to just simply go ahead and increase this by a very huge amount. And if I select this and choose a certain color, I want you to notice that it starts influencing this. All right, you start seeing a bit of red here. You can see that there. Now if you cannot see this, you need to turn this off so that you can see the significant difference and turn it back on. All right, so you can turn it off and turn it back on just to get a much more significant difference of how this thing works. All right, so with this there, I just want to use this to explain to the subscriber that asked how this works, that this is how it works. Now let's get right into shading this how I would like to shade it. So I'm just going to turn that off, take some metal. So I'm still going to use the same metal, by the way, and now I want to make it an iodized metal, and I'm going to just simply increase this, which would definitely give me something dark. All right, still the same gold, but once you switch this, because the film extension coefficient is what actually makes an object set to gold. So if I just turn this all the way down, it becomes gold, but if I turn it all the way up, it becomes, you know, pure metal. So I'm just going to just punch this all the way up. So let me set this to 0.1, and I'm going to just simply set this to 1, and there you go. I have this as a pure metal. Let's drop this down just a little bit. I think it's a little bit too much, or you know, we can select from this and just change this to iron. So we can select from this and just set this to, you know, to one of them. So let me just simply select copper. Copper looks good. Copper doesn't look bad. Okay, so with copper selected, next thing which I'm going to do, so I'm going to do this real quick, is I'm going to double click on this panel that we have here, and with this panel double clicked, I will simply add a simple light. Doesn't seem to work, so maybe I should just switch this to an area light. And then since it's an area light, I'll set it to watts, and so you can see we have watts happening there. So from this point within the camera, you can see we have this nice light, you know, punching all the way out there. Now the other thing which I think we need to do now is, instead of just having this floor to stay as it is, I'm going to simply double click on this floor and open up the graph editor. So I'm just going to click to open up the graph editor, and if you want to check the video where we talked about graph editor, it is in the channel, and probably you can check that out and learn a thing or two. So for this graph editor, this is what I would do. I will simply link this up to the opacity mask and just keep this there. Remember, we're doing this for this particular object, and with the opacity, with the gradient mask, with the gradient texture added to the opacity, I want you guys to notice that we're beginning to have this fade off here. Now there is also an alpha that exists, so I'm showing you guys the alpha. I would like to use this alpha to simply drive the gradient mask, or the gradient. All right, so I'm going to just connect this there, and you will be able to notice that once I switch my camera, so I'm just going to keep this out there and simply switch to that camera, you will notice I'm beginning to have this thing going on here. Now I don't like it the way it is, so for this, instead of just having this the way it is, I would switch things up a little bit by adding a color invert, and just throw in this color invert here, connect it there, and there you go. All right, so I'm just connecting the color invert here so I can get a different color looking there. Okay, so let's look at this and see what we have. So now within the same free camera, I wouldn't like this to be visible in to the camera, so I'm just going to say don't be visible to the camera. We can see the light, but we don't want to see the object itself. And for these other lights that we have here, I'm also going to do exactly the same thing. So say for a light like this, or for an image like this, I would come through and simply make this an area light of its own. And this area light, I would like it to have a simple shade of color. So let's go over and make this that color, set this to wattage, and it's going to be a little bit more, and I'm going to set this to 150 so that it's just a little bit less. Let's actually make this 200 and see how much light that comes out of it. At any time as well, you can open a graph editor and use something else to actually drive this. So I'm just going to go ahead and simply use the same gradient node. All right, so I can simply mix two objects together, or two colors together. So I'm just going to connect that there, and you know, let's bring this out here and choose a different color. So right now we have black and white, but I would like to simply add a different color to this. So let's go ahead and make this, say, something like red, and from here I can also choose to make this maybe a much more bluer or a much more yellow color object. All right, So I have that there now, and you can see we have some fine light happening there. So it's looking way more better than what we had before. If I turn this off, you can see what we're having. Let me find it and turn it off. So if I turn this off, you can see what we're having, and if I turn this on, you see we're having something way more better. And I don't want this to be visible by camera, so I'm turning that off. For these ones, they would just be very simple point lights that I just want to keep around. Or maybe I should just simply make them a tiny area lights that should just hang around. So I can just make them very tiny area lights, wattage, and set these ones to 10. Or maybe set them to 50. So I'm going to set this to 50 so that we can have that light coming from there. So let's just add a little bit of blue so that we can have some blue coming from there. So we can set this to actually 100. And instead of blue, we can opt for much more purple looking color so that it blends in with the entire thing. So I'm going to turn this off. And the same thing happens for something like this. I'm going to simply come through and add an area light here, and also set this to wattage, and maybe set this to 200. And now that it's 200, I think I'll look for a different color altogether, something that should just complement this. So I can pick a color. Let's opt for something like this as well. So I think we should opt for something like these ones that we had before. Okay, so now I have this here. We can simply grab this object, move this object how we want it to be. So I'm just going to move this selection here to a point where I want it to be. Let's drag this forward, drag this here, rotate this just a little bit. And once this is done, we can come through and say we don't want this to be visible by the camera. Now, this is a good time for us to switch back to all those camera settings or positions that we saved out earlier, because at this point now we can simply look at them and say, okay, fine, this is good, we can work with this, or we cannot work with this. And at the same time, you can always just double click on on this particular object that you have here. You can always go to the graph. If you're not comfortable with the floor, the way the floor is looking, you can always get the graph editor here and unlink all these things all the way out, so you can get a perfect looking floor. And so this is how you can go around and play with lights and also influence objects around your scene. And if by any chance you're not comfortable with the HDRI light you have here, you can at every single time, right? You can at every single time choose to edit your HDRI light. So if you come through and simply say you want to edit your HDRI light, Keyshot makes it okay for you to be able to edit your HDRI light here. So you can edit the HDRI lights you want, or you can choose to throw in a different light texture. So let's say you want to throw in a different HDRI. You can use a different HDRI to actually change the entire look of your model depending on what you're going for. Right now we're using the default studio, and you can simply choose other things like both the interior and just fling the interior directly there. Or maybe you want to use some outdoor shots. You can use outdoor shots to change how the object actually reflects to light in your scene. And I'm going to just simply switch back to the camera here, position this a little bit more, drag this up just so that we can get a good view. Let's actually angle this a little bit more, something like that. And yes, all right, so this is about it. I would like to know what you guys think about this in the comment section. And like always, if you like this video, you know what to do. Hit the like button, turn on notification. If you're new here, it's going to be super amazing to have you in the subscription team. So hit the subscribe button and also turn on notification so you don't miss any video which we're making next. And until I see you guys again with an update, tutorial, tips and tricks, free Friday, things like this. Peace.